Hey, you guys, hold on. Okay. Hey, you guys. Hey, my camera, right? So I just wanted to come to you guys because I wanted to give you guys, my testimony because the guy had just done some things these last couple of months. Um, so last December, so December 2025, I was working at a job after I left another one, and I had started on December 5th, and a few weeks later, I was on there for a few weeks, and for a reason, they came up with some foolishness. They decided to let me go, and it was a few days before Christmas. When I say a few days, literally, it was on December 22nd, 3 days before Christmas. And it's very hard to find work and find a job around the holidays. Um, and I was devastated. I was hurt because it was around the holidays, and Christmas, and that's my favorite holiday. Like I want things to be right and things to be good. The year before that, I already went through some stuff because I got into my car accident. I was like, okay, this year going into 2025, I don't want no mess. And from 2024, from that accident up until all that shit, it was just like every time I turned around, I was having financial problems. Also financial, I owed here, I owed there. Then I became a foster mom, and I had these goals where I wanted to, the money I got from foster, I wanted to save up some money, maybe catch up on some bills, pay some stuff, and then start saving up. Couldn't do that because something else would come along. Because that extra money that I had, I could have put that towards paying off these credit cards. I got 2 credit cards in loan. But anyway, and I was like, okay, so now I'm going into 2026. I'm like, okay, you know, anything from 2025, I don't want to bring, I'm going to a new year. I want to be new. I don't want to bring any drama or any whatever going into 2026. But also not lose my car, so I had no way of getting around. And I'm in a relationship with this guy. And, we're living together. He's helping me out, and then because once I lost that job, I wasn't working, but he was, but he didn't have the type of job where he make enough to cover the bills for my place because he didn't have his own place. And so I had to file unemployment, but I knew I was gonna have some money coming in. And I meant to file right away, but I kind of got distracted and things happening, so I didn't file it till like around like January. But anyway, so I filed unemployment. I got rent coming up in February. So all my bills in January, I was able to pay them, cover them. I was able to pay. And then February comes, I was able to pay. I didn't have anything. And so I'm like, okay, how am I going to cover rent? I got electric coming up and all these bills coming up and credit cards and loans and all this type of stuff, right? So I get into that place where I get depressed and I'm stressing out, right? And I filed unemployment. It's going to be a while before it kicks in. So I knew my rent could possibly be late. But I'm like, okay, I've been in a situation before, and God has always made sure that my rent is covered. Because I'm like, this rent is covered. Because I never been in a situation before, so I didn't know, like, are they going to evict me right then? Are they going to work with me? And so I remember calling my property manager and talking to her. She was like, just call us, like, that week of. And if you're not going to, so that way we know we can work with you. And then like, on the 8th, that's when they'll normally like reach out and say, hey, set up a payment plan. Then you had 10 days from there to have set up a payment plan. If you don't set up a payment plan within those 10 days, basically by the 18th, then they'll send the eviction thing out and stuff. So during this time, we get a storm. So with February, they waived the late fee for rent for February. So I'm like, okay. But I'm worried about, because I'm like, so the unemployment drops at the beginning of February. Okay. And it drops, but it was only, so I was able to pay, but then I had some other money come from somewhere because I know with the unemployment, it was only like 300 or something like 298, and I took that and I added it to some other money I had that kind of came in, so I ended up paying $700 towards my rent. I was like, I gotta pay it. I said, it don't make sense to pay electric bill, and I ain't got no way, it don't make sense. I'm gonna pay for some lights, but I ain't got no place for, you know what I'm saying? But I'm not gonna be there. The lights is on, but I ain't gonna be there because I'm gonna be kicked out. So I ended up paying that towards the rent for February. And then I had reached out to a church and they were able to help me to cover the electric for February, right? So now I got March coming up, but I don't have any money because then what happened was, so when that week in February, when the unemployment dropped, they finally asked a question about transportation. Those when I when I was filing my weekly certification every week, that question ain't came up yet. So it comes up, and I made the mistake, because I'm juggling kids or whatever, of accidentally saying I didn't have transportation. So now that ended up affecting me, and they immediately stopped like the money. So next week came, I said, well, let's see, because I always filed on that Sunday. I said, well, let's see, because when I filed last time, they dropped by that Tuesday. I said, well, let's see. Tuesday comes, no money. I said, oh my God. And then I go online reading, it was like, oh, you're not eligible because you don't have transportation. So I realized I made a mistake. And I think it was late at night too, so I was trying to think, when I thought back about it, I realized I do have transportation, because where I live at, I have public transportation. I have friends that can give me a ride, So I'm like, okay, I do have transportation. So then I filed a pill right then once right there in that moment. Because I think that day it didn't happen. So I think they told me immediately right away, like that Monday. And stuff, they told me, they was like, oh yeah, so I did the pill right then. I sat right there on the phone, called someone, and she helped me online do it. So I got done right then. So, and this is right at the beginning of February. So I'm like, okay. And so then I looked it up online. There was it'll take about 4 to 5 days before. So I'm praying and hoping that it does not take the whole 4 to 5 days. But I feel like that happened for a reason. Because God likes to test you. Because you want to say, oh, I trust in you, I believe in you. Because God really could have went in there and made it where they could have probably came in a little bit earlier, right? Because he could have done a miracle, but bless it. Because I have not, so now at this point, but at era, I have no money coming in. So I'm thinking, okay, March is going ahead, and then they're talking about 4 to 5 days, where it's 30 days of the month. So they're talking about a month and 2 weeks. So I'm like, okay, the second week of March, I should know, because it was like, it takes a while to even get a hearing. It was like, it takes that long, but I'm thinking I'll at least get the phone call and the hearing before then. It took them a whole month to even set up a hearing date. So when they called me in March to set the hearing date, it was towards like probably the second or third week in March. And they didn't have a date until April 7th. I'm thinking, you got to be kidding. And I have no income coming in. And I got rent coming, and I still owe for February's rent. I got March rent coming up, right? So so I remember like that whole like February and March, I was calling around. This is when I started calling around. So I called DSS. They don't have no funds, and a lot of organizations get their funds from social services. I'm like, well, if social services doesn't have it, then no other places are gonna have it. So a lot of churches couldn't help me. The Salvation Army couldn't help me. You know what I'm saying? Because when I called 211, the two places that they gave me was the Salvation Army and Social Services. I said I already reached out to them, and so Social Services does not have the funds. And when I called them, they was like, Salvation Army gets their funding from Social Services, and they didn't have it because Social Services didn't have it to give them. So now I'm really paying come like I can't get help anywhere. And then that's when the church in February had been, because by then they already covered my room in February, so I couldn't go back to them again. So I was like, okay, well, so I'm calling other churches. Some people either they didn't have the funds, or they didn't have that type of program. A lot of places didn't have a rent program, or they didn't have the funds at the time, or they already helped out, or whatever like that. So I'm praying. And so I'm sitting here like, okay, and I didn't realize at that time, but I was relying so much on my works and my time and me physically trying to do like, okay, let me call around, do all this stuff, right? And I remember the headaches that I had, and then I'm trying to file my taxes. And my mom's delaying, and I'm like, I need this money, because I need to get me a car and all that type of stuff, right? And she's trying to do all this extra stuff, and I really don't have the time for that. Oh, you did this, da, da, da. I need my money. I need to get a car. I don't have, you know what I'm saying? I'm not working. She doesn't know the situation because I can't communicate to her because she's so negative, aggressive, and just social. So I said, I'm going to keep it to myself. So my mom, literally had no idea what I went through. Okay. So then I finally got my taxes completed. what was it in March? Because we had to wait 21 days, so it was like beginning of March, because they dropped it in April. It but right before that, I remember I said, you know what? And some of the other places, they weren't even open during the week. They was only open on the days they had service. Like they had Wednesday night service, they was only open they were open at 7 p.m. Then like they had Sunday service, they was open then to call. So you couldn't call during the week. You know, there was an answer. I said, okay, you know what? I just threw my hands up. I was like, well, I know I can't. I'm ready to reach them. It's gonna be hard to get them. The other places I have called, a lot of places I called, they never, they wouldn't answer. I've left a message. Nobody ever returned my call when I left a message. Other, you know, I was like, you know what? In that moment, I had to trust in God. I said, okay, you know what? I said, so I got in my bed that night, and this is before I finished up, you know, and I laid in that bed, and I said, okay, I said, God, I said, because I said, it's too much. I said, you know, when it comes to stuff like this, I'm not good at dealing. And I was honest with God. I said, you know, I'm not good at dealing with stuff like this. I'm not good at dealing with the uncertainty. When things are not certain for me, I don't do good with it. I said, God, you know how I am. I said, but God, I said, but it's too much on me. I said, because I was having like sinus head, like pressure in my head, to where it was weighing down my eyes, and my eyes had this heaviness. And I said, God, I'm going to give it to you, and give it to you because since I've been on my own, you always make sure I had what I need. You always make sure I provided. You never let my lights get cut off. You never let, you always had it. I always had a roof over my head. Because I was panicking because I did not want to go back to live with my mom. She's not livable. I love her to death, but I can't. And then my sister, her lifestyle, I was like, I said, God, we had, and I reminded her. I talked to her as if like, I said, God, you know, we had this conversation before. I said, you know how I feel. I said, you know, I cannot be around. I can't live. I can't do it. And I made her lay in that bed, and I said, God, I'm going to give it to you. I said, you know what I need. I said, you know what's going on. I said, I'm still going. I know you're going to provide my needs to make sure I have what I need. And when I did that, it was like it just came off me, right? Because it's right if I went to bed, so I go to work the next day. I finished my taxes out, and it took me a while to realize that I didn't have the headache anymore. Like it took a while, and I was like, I know, because I was using, somebody gave me this oil, essential oil, and I would rub it on my head, and that was helping me get through. I haven't had to use it since I said that prayer, because I had finally given it to Him, and when I finally gave it to Him, and that next day I woke up, it was like I just had this peace. And I remember somehow I kind of like forgot, because I think I remember saying I was going to do some phone calls or something, and I kind of just had forgotten about it. So I had stopped making the calls. I said, you know what, I'm just tired of calling. I was like, gotta work it out. You know, I just, you know, and so I stopped the work that I was doing. I said, I'm just going to trust, and I kind of rested in Him. And I wasn't making any phone calls, wasn't calling nobody. And I was like, well, you know, I'm just going to trust. And I remember I was like, call your private manager, just talk to them. So they was like, hey. So I said, look, you know, I'm waiting for I just filed my taxes. They're going to be coming in. I said, and I remember one time when I called, because I still owe for February, they was like, I remember in March, they was like, well, can you pay at least like, what can you pay? She like, because for February, you still owe February. You owe $320. I said, I know I can't do 3. I said, what about, I said, I know, I said, can I do 100? She was like, well, can you do 200? And I was like, well, yes. But I was saying, like, man, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can do that, right? So if I pay that, I had other bills. You know, I'm still paying my car insurance. I know I'm going to get me a car. But I just did liability, so I don't have to pay that much, right? So I'm like, okay. You know, so I'm like, what do I, you know, so I was like, but I gotta have a roof over my head, because I gotta pay something, so they won't, you know. So I was like, okay. But I knew I didn't have enough to do that and some other stuff, so I was like, okay. But I was like, okay, but I got to, you know. So I paid the $200, and I was like, you know, I should be getting my taxes, because I just found they said in a few days, but they said in like 20 days, but I was praying, hoping it would come before then, you know. And but I let her know, you know, when I do that, I'll pay the rest of the balance, you know, for March and all that, you know, when it comes. But there's still things coming up. So now my phone bill is coming up. I'm behind my electric bill because February is paid, but I did March's electric bill wasn't paid. So now I owe, and March's electric bill was like $291. But then I owed, no, February, let me see. Yeah, February, so February, when I got the bill for February, it was for January. And so, and then in March, it's like somehow I got another bill, it was like $291, and then March was like 140 something, something like that. Because I realized, oh, in March it dropped down because it was for February. Because how my bill goes is the bill I get for March is for the month before. So I knew this November, December, and January it was going to be high. My bill was like 200 something for electric bill. But then when I got the bill for March, cause I thought it was only like 145 for March, because but it was for the month of February. So okay, it went down. So I had owed for March because that was coming up, and I hadn't paid that, and then for February, because I think they had paid my electric bill because I was late paying it, and I knew I had like towards like the end of the month or something. Yes, I think January, and then yes, so I owed February and March for electricity. And in February, they had paid what was due for February, but that was like January's or whatever. And so then February's bill hits. And then I got March, and I hadn't paid February's yet. So I was like, man, what am I going to do, what am I going to do? So then, and now I'm worried that my light's going to be cut out because I hadn't paid anything. But I remember somehow, I paid something because the bill stayed on. But I remember calling, I said, hey, is there any way, God was just telling me, like, oh, call them and see if you do this, because I've never been in a situation, because I've always had a job, always worked and things, God always made sure. So, but I was stressing, because I was like, man, if I'm out here on the streets, what I'm going to do? I said, I'm not going home. I said, I will live up in the car, listen before I go home. And it wasn't a proud thing, it was just the fact that the way my mom is, she's not someone you can live with. Because she'll treat you like a child, and I'm not. I'm your daughter, but I'm not a child, And so now my phone bill's coming up, and the electric bill was due. And I'm like, what am I going to do, right? And I was tutoring, so I had a little bit of that money coming in, so I was putting that towards some other stuff, because I only but so much, right? So then, my I was sending some money here and there. So last month, right? And man, what am I gonna do? I owe $400 something in my electric bill, and whatever, like these lights gonna be out, right? And then my phone bill was due, because somehow I paid my phone bill for fair. I was making sure that phone bill was fair, because that was my only form of communication. I don't have no landline, so I had to pay that. But by the grace of God, God made a way for me to pay that bill. Like some money would come in, I was able to cover that. I think it came from like when I was tutoring. I covered that, and I might have threw a few little dollars over there, or something. But I was like, I said, man, so I'm like flipping out, 'cause I'm like, oh my God, am I gonna be in the dark without no lights, and then my phone gonna be cut off, and I was expecting a phone call from unemployment because of my hearing, and I gotta have this, again, because there's no income coming in, because I'm just stuck with the unemployment, so I have nothing. And yeah, God made sure I had a roof over my head these last couple months. February's rent, didn't pay all of February's rent, never paid March's rent, but I set up a payment plan with them, so that covered me, thank God, and stuff. And I was like, what am I gonna do? Well, my uncle had sent me $50, so I was like, I used that, and I put that towards the phone bill. So what happened was, I decided, okay, I said, let me apply for the LEAP program that they have for the electric. So I applied for that. So I'm like, okay, and I got approved for it. So I'm like, okay, Grace, when it come through, I said, but I applied for it. I said, let me call and see, because I got the letter in the mail, but it didn't say like how long it would take before I get it. So I said, let me call. So I called and said, hey, I'm calling about the LEAP program. I applied for it, and I got a letter in the mail saying that I was approved, and I was eligible for it, and I was trying to figure out when it was gonna go out, because my electric bill's coming up, and and I'm currently working at the moment, so I and I want to make sure it gets covered, because I have what And at this point, it was due like the 23rd, right? And she was like, well, it'll take about 6 weeks before it'll like take effect. So that's why we always encourage the customers to still continue to pay on their bill. And I'm saying, like, because I don't think I said to her that I wasn't working. I said, okay. I said, thank you. So that's what happened, because I'm thinking, oh my goodness. They're saying 6 weeks, and I knew it wasn't going to get there before that date. So I said, well, let me call them and see what I can do. I said, hey, I see my bills due on this day. Is there any way I can get an extension for another week because I'm expecting my taxes to come in and, you know, I applied for this LEAP program. It says it's going to be a while, but I'm hoping it'll come, you know. He was like, yeah, I can extend you for another week to the 30th, right? March 30th. Cool. But I still knew it was going to be, but at least I had a little bit more. And so I kind of, because I'm expecting to hit because that was like 6 weeks, but something made me go because I was trying to reach out to them to see if I could extend it again. And they was like, and they weren't open on the weekend, and they was like, so I would have to wait to Monday, which was Thursday. And she was like, but you can go online and you can get extended. So I go online, and that's what made me go online. So I go online to look to see if I can get it, extended, and that, so so of course I have to log in and do the verification, and so of course it immediately puts you on your dashboard where you can see your balance. And so when it came up, I looked at the balance, it said $34 and change. I knew the balance was like it was 400 and something. You know, it was like 400 and something because I'm gonna get this. Because my thing was like, if I pay $296, I'm like, I said, oh my goodness, the 400 because the amount that I got was like for LEAP program was $400. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm eligible. It hit. I was like, that number got right there because they told me 6 weeks. And I knew I wasn't hitting the 6 because wasn't going to hit the 6 weeks by then. I was like, oh my God, wait. I said, oh my God. I said, now, but then now I'm like, okay, well, hopefully, but because I still owe $34, I was like, hopefully they won't cut off the lights because I still owe that balance because that's for something else because this is for April. And April's bill is due on April 4th and stuff like that. They just probably just covered it up to, you know, because that April bill, I don't think they, you know. So I'm like, oh my God, you know, and so I'm like, oh my God, and you know, like he, you know, number God, because I'm thinking, man, I'm finna be sitting by no lights, and I had just paid the phone bill because my uncle had sent some money, so I was able to pay it. You know, he sent me $50, and I put it, and I think I had some money. I think I had got $75 from some tutoring, so I put that together. I paid that, and there are times because I was able to somehow get some money. I'll put that towards my loan that I had with the bank, and so whatever I had, if I need to, I could use that and move something to cover a bill. But it was like, but there doesn't but God making a way for money to come, some kind of way to cover these bills. Like money, you know what I'm saying? I give me money, a few dollars here and there, and you know, and so just to help me out. My sister had floated me some money at one point. It was like God sent people. He sent certain family members and even like churches to help me cover to get me. You know, I'm like, and when I just stopped relying on my works and I was okay and just gave it to God and rested, I saw I was able to see God work. I finally stepped out on faith. I said I'm gonna step out on this faith, and I had this faith in God. And when I stepped out on faith, I was able to see. And these past couple of days, God's been just bringing that to me. Like, dang, I was, you know, and this was happening, that was happening, and you know, and then He had me think of other times when things have happened. You know, no income coming in. Like, no job, no unemployment coming in, but somehow He made sure I sat a roof over my head. You know what I'm saying? Didn't have the money for February's rent or March's. You know, and but He made sure. Okay, I'll make sure you have a roof for your head. He always made sure. He always made sure. Because I still had faith in Him, and then I had to wait and trust in Him because I was so adamant wanted God to do it on my time. But one thing about it is because I'm like, He's deadlines, but God, when God comes in and He shows you, He does it on His time. So that way you can really, so that way you can receive it and receive that revelation and so that you can see His glory. Because if he did it when you wanted, you wouldn't be able to see His glory. A lot of times you will see stuff right, and He did it on His time. And I was able to see, you know, and I was like, wow. He made sure my lights got paid when it needed to be paid. He made sure I was able to pay that phone bill. I paid most of my, so then I ended up paying most of my rent. Because then I ended up paying for February that $200. So it went from $720 to $920. Because my rent is $1,020 a month. So I ended up owing $100. No, I'm sorry, I ended up paying $200. So I'm sorry. So I paid $700. And then I owed like $320, so I ended up paying $200, so that was $900. So I ended up owing $120 for February, because my for February when I went into March. So I'm like, okay, I owe $100 for February, and that's what kind of helped me too, because I paid $200, and the guy made it to where I could cover the other stuff. I was like, I'm just trusting God. I said, because I gotta have this over my head, so I'm just gonna, and it was scary. And sometimes, like, stepping out in faith, it's scary. When God tells you to do something, it's not like, a lot of times it's something outside of your comfort zone. He'll make you step out that bubble. He'll make you, and it's not going to be comfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable, and it's not going to be easy. It's going to be scary, and a lot of times we're afraid. And I've made, just from this, I'm going through, I was like, I'm listening to God. So anything I do, all right, God, what car am I supposed to buy? Because I wasn't quite sure what car to get. And this is for a taxi here, so I have been praying. And he had told me. It's like, this is the car you're going to get. Now he's told me what color the car is supposed to be. And I know other people going to be questioning, like, why? And some of it's going to become from jealousy, but, well, why? I said, because God told me to. I said, God told me to get this car and this color, so I'm going to do what God told me to do. Because he wants me to go out into the ministry and minister to people, and he wants me to foster again. And I'm going to do what God tells me to do. Because one thing, that concept, I remind myself, God has never left me. Since I've been out my own, since 2011, had my own place, he's always made sure I had a roof. I never lacked for anything. He always made sure I had whatever I need. And more. I got so many clothes, it's ridiculous. I got so many shoes, it's ridiculous. I got so much food, it's ridiculous. God has always blessed me with abundance. So I'm saying, like, why am I sitting having anxiety and worrying when all this abundance I got in this house? God ain't gonna sit there and let me not have the roof over here. He gave me all this. He's gonna make sure. So, and he wanted me to. He was like, you need to share that testimony. I'm like, damn, like, wow, God just came through, man. He just came through. He just came through. No income was coming in. And every month, there was something that I started, I'm telling you, when I sat there and finally gave it to him, things had just been, one thing after another just hitting. And I see things different. And he's giving me these revelations. It's almost like he's saying, see? You see, did you see what I just did? Have I ever? You knew I was going to, have I ever? You see, I did it right, like I always done. You see how I've done what I always done? I've never sat there and left you. So while you're sitting here worrying, you knew I was going to be there for you. But at the same time, God also knows that's a normal reaction for us. He doesn't hold that against us. Because he was still there. He still made sure I had what I needed. You know what I'm saying? God's mercy and grace and forgiveness is a gift. We can't earn it. It's unconditional. It's salvation. It's a gift. It's not earned. God doesn't put any condition on his love. He never stops loving us. God knows before we make the mistake what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, how we're going to do it, where we're going. He already knows. There's no hesitation. But God's only going to take you not listening to him for so long. And that was part of it too. And then I wasn't tithing. I used to tithe all the time. I stopped tithing. God was telling me something that I wasn't listening and doing what he was telling me to do. I was fighting it. And God gets tired of you not listening and fighting him. And sometimes he has to bring you down. That's what happened. I lost my job. I lost my car. I had just got the car. And the thing about that was I wasn't supposed to get that car. When I got that car in 2024, I knew because I went to God. And I prayed. Because I had a loan with the bank, and they told me it had to be a certain price, it had to be certain miles on that car, it couldn't go certain miles, a certain year of the car for the car to be eligible. So I did a lot of looking. And I had Dusha say to me, well, you're not going to, because the type of car I was looking for, because the features, he said, you're not going to find a car with all those features and for that price and mile a year, whatever. I said, okay. And I said, well, thank you for that. And I remember I walked out. I said to myself, I said, God, I know the God I serve. And I know that you will make it to where I will find the car that, I said, you know what car I need, and then the price points I need, the miles that I need. I said, I know you'll make a way. And he made a way. I think I did my testimony, he made a way. Right? And at first I was getting defeated, and finally it came through. It was a car that I wanted. It had all the features that I wanted, the color, everything. Because I ain't with no black. Right? But it was in another city. It was in Raleigh, North Carolina. Okay? So when I see, I said, this is this. I'm calling people, trying to reach out to them, a lot of phone tags. So now I'm at work. Well, guess what? The people at the other dealership, they called me. And I realized the process at the time, a lot of times God would send someone to test you, to see if you're going to obey him. Because you prayed to him, and then when God answered, he answered our prayer by telling me, here's the car. Here it is. This was it. I said, and I remember saying, oh, this is my car. This is it. So I believe, had I said just stuck with the one, I still would have had that car to this day. So that's why I'm adamant. I'm going to get the car God told me to get. I'm adamant. I'm going to do what God tells me to do. Because then I didn't realize at that moment that's when I was being tested. Okay, now it was the other. Because I had to make a decision. Do I go this way, or do I go the way that I know? Because do I go to where the prayer was answered? But the problem was it was in Raleigh. I didn't have a car that's going to get there. So I went there the other way because it's convenience right here. And it was met off desperation. Because I was going to work. I was tired of doing it. And that right there took that had affected my decision on it. Because I was just showing that breaking point at that point. And I felt that, and I've been feeling this way this time around. You know, I'm just so ready because I had to rely on people, you know, to get to church events and things like that, and and things like that, and you get you there, so you get excited and you whatever. But I knew, because there were times I was almost tempted to be like, I did think about, I was looking at Chevy Equinox, but that was why I would have gotten in the first place, because I wasn't quite sure what to do with Carter Box. So I went and got and I prayed. I said, God. And then I still wasn't quite sure, because I was like, is it because I started crying, I really wanted it? So I said, okay. I remember going home, I prayed again. And then I prayed again, and he told me again by showing me. Every time I would go somewhere, like, because I was going to this event on Friday. I was going to something on Sunday that was tied to the event for Friday. And every time I go, because I don't have the car in the house, so whenever I would go out the house, even if I go to Walmart, I saw that car. I said, I saw it every day. Now I'm just buying my business. There it was. There was the van. I would see it every time I stood out that door in the car. Now I'm looking for it. There it was. Then I remember I went out to my mom a couple weeks ago, and I'm in Fayetteville, and I just see him. We ended up going to Walmart, and as we turned to Walmart, I saw one van. And then my mom goes to park. I see another van, the one that God told me to get. I said, God, I hear you loud and clear. I said, I hear you loud and clear. I said, okay, I know what car to get. I said, I'm going to get it. And then I prayed to him and asked him, why this car, and what do you want me to do with this car when I get this car? Multiple times. And he was like, ministry, and you're going to foster again. Because he repeatedly keeps showing me, grabbing this car, this infant car seat, and I'm putting this car seat into this van. So he's literally telling me I'm supposed to have a baby. Not no 3-year-old or 2-year-old one. It's supposed to be an infant. So I feel he's telling me even then. So when I go to do the fostering or the adopt, or maybe I'm supposed to adopt, that this is the child you're supposed to. This is the age of the child where you're supposed to get a baby. And he's telling me. So, and I learned from last year, because that car got in December 2024. After I got to my car accident, I wasn't supposed to get a car. I knew I'm supposed to get a car. Then when I decided to be a foster mom, I knew when they told me their ages and what was going. I knew, and I said yes. I said yes to the car that I bought. I said yes to getting those boys. I remember saying yes to the job I was at. because I knew they wasn't paying me with my value, my worth. But again, it was that fear. Oh, I got these bills and da da da. I know my value and worth. I'm leaving a job that's paying me this amount, but you don't want to pay me that. You want to pay me almost $2 less than what I was making at the other one, and I should have stood my ground. But I was so like, oh, I got these bills. I gotta. When I should have trusted in Him. When I should have trusted in God, you know. But I've learned that I has revelation. But these last months while I've gone through of God making sure I had what I needed. Been unemployed since December. Had not worked since December. And yet He made sure that I had a roof over my head. And I had electricity and I had whatever I needed. Even my internet was being paid. Because I was like, well, no, for me to do the job, I do the job working from home, I gotta have the internet. He made sure that's covered. And you know, so that way I can apply and do what I need to do. He made sure. You had to have faith and wait and trust in God. You know what I'm saying? Patience is very important. Because God, because you have to wait, sit and wait. Because God, He's an on-time God, but He's also going to do it on, where I'm at, but He's also going to do it on His time. Okay? He's also going to do it on His time. You got to wait on Him and trust in Him. And it was so hard for me to trust in Him. And consider Christianity, it was so hard for me to submit myself to Him, my whole and live according to His will, you know. And I've done that. I was like, I'm just gonna submit to you. You know, when I made that, I was like, I'm gonna submit to God and give my life and myself to God and live according to His will and what He wants me to do. So, and it's kind of scary, but at the same time, I know God will never lead me astray. He ain't gonna lead me astray. He ain't gonna sit there and, you know, He's not gonna do that. Whatever God has for me is for my good. It's not. He's not gonna harm me. He's not gonna lead me down some wrong. And sometimes we do have to constantly remind ourselves when that fear comes up. God is our Father. You know what I'm saying? Because my Father is rich. I lack of nothing. I ain't broke. My dad got money. My Heavenly Father got money. I ain't broke. I'm a child of God. I'm covered. We have to remind ourselves that when we submit to God, He ain't gonna sit there and lead us wrong. He ain't gonna put us in harm's way. It's something I still have to work on. Something I still have to sit there and I kind of remind myself, because it's a new journey I'm going on. So I have to kind of remind myself when Satan, and a lot of times that fear, that's Satan. That's Satan. Okay? And, you know, and we can't listen, and we can't let those thoughts get in there. But that's my testimony. You know, how God has worked in my life these last couple months. Make sure I have what I need. No income coming in. And I literally had to step up. I had to stop. And for days, almost about 2 weeks, I was just sitting there doing anything. I said, well, and it was funny how, and all of a sudden, I kind of wasn't even like, it's like somehow like this peace and this word wasn't there anymore. Like I was kind of just, you know, and of course I'm reading my Bible every day and doing my devotional and stuff, and you know, and I can't believe when it first happened, I allowed Satan to take my peace and joy away, because I was so down, so depressed, I was overwhelmed, I was miserable, and Satan was winning. And when I realized that, and I came up out that funk, and I started whatever, and next thing I know, when I took my joy and peace back, I was like, no, I'm not going to do this way, especially when I was able to get out and he started to bring it back to me. Satan couldn't win no more. He couldn't win no more. You know, and I can't believe I let that man sit up there, but that's in the past. And it's a learning experience. And I'm not going to let it happen again. Never. But I love you all, and I pray that you guys get some out of this testimony. I pray you guys get encouraged, and it gives you the strength to trust in God and step out on a leap of faith and just wait and trust in Him. You know what I'm saying? I just pray that for you guys, that you guys, you know, submit yourselves to God completely, with no hesitation, and just take that leap of faith. Because He will not lead you astray. He will not. What God has for you is for good. He has nothing but good for you. He's not going to harm you. And And I hope you, and I pray that someone can, y'all can accept that. Accept that what God has for you and trust in God, and submit to Him. I love you guys. I do. God bless.